Thank you, thank you. I'm going to take just a moment to connect because this is a very important day for certainly for our company, but really I want to focus on the experience of talking about catering out of restaurants today, because I've learned in my career that catering out of restaurants is a very specific conversation. And what's really exciting for us is we've essentially put in the idea of education for restaurateurs, which is separate from software. So although our company is called MonkeyMedia Software, in fact, we've learned that software is an important tool for execution when we get to scale, but there's a bigger conversation that needs to happen. So my goal today really is to, the first half of the session, I'm going to focus on why catering out of restaurants is where it is. We're going to talk about that. And then we're going to have a beautiful panel of people today to talk to you about what they're doing in their restaurant operations in terms of the actual tactical elements and how they're applying the strategy. So this conversation about restaurant catering is very specific, and I call it restaurant catering because there's a lot of confusion in the marketplace in terms of what is catering. Catering is a big word. It's confusing. It means to help, to serve. And so, for all intents and purposes, everything we do in our businesses every day is catering. And so very specific, the conversation is how do we execute as restaurateurs catering operations on top of existing restaurant assets? And this is really the complexity that lives very deep in our community. And so I'm gonna spend some time talking about that. And I wanted to really begin the conversation by talking about how a small deli is really impacting and changing the balance sheet of America. And this is a very big statement. Now, why is it so big? Well, the restaurant industry is the second largest employer in the US. We have 13 million workers, 1 million restaurants, $660 billion worth of sales. And so one would argue if we have healthy balance sheets, we're really, really serving America well, okay? So the strategies I'm going to share today is really what happened inside my deli. I experienced this firsthand. I stand before you today 15 years later as a community member. This was not a planned event. This was really just a series of years of picking away at an idea with a lot of people who supported me on the way. And I've been sort of standing on this soapbox talking about catering out of restaurants while everybody else went to online ordering for takeout and all this kind of thing. So my experience really comes out of a deli operation that I owned. And the reason why it was, I'm just like you, I'm a restaurant guy, that's what I do. Okay, I never planned to be a software company. It just came out of my deli operations. And along my journey, as I was working my deli, Tony's Deli, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about it, essentially a greater passion really grew out of that experience, where I realized there was an opportunity to share this business strategy in the restaurant community. And as people started to clamor onto the business strategy, I became more and more interested as an individual in working in that space, okay? And so it's really just about good business. Anytime we can layer incremental sales on top of existing assets, it's good business. Now, the challenge we have as restaurant operators is that catering is an afterthought. It's not something we planned for. So as we scale, as we get out into our restaurants, we get into multi-unit restaurant environments, we get into franchising and all these complexities that live in our operations. Bringing another business on top of this creates a lot of tension and it creates a lot of anxiety. It's not an easy thing to do, but what happens is when we understand the strategy and we apply it into our facilities, the results are phenomenal. And we're going to have some people that are going to talk to you today about that, okay? So it really comes down to more sales out of existing assets is always a good thing. Does anybody disagree with that idea? Okay. So I think we all understand that intuitively. We're all looking for more sales. We've become an industry of discounting, of giving away, of Groupon, of 2-for-1s, all of these elements to try and drive traffic. As restaurateurs, we think we're competing with each other, but really we're a community of people that are struggling to get our consumers to spend more money with our brands, okay? And I can tell you, our customers eat a lot, all right? So they're not only spending money in our restaurants, but they're spending money also in grocery, they're spending money in hospitality. There's an incredible amount of opportunity out there to go back to our customers and sell them more services, okay? And that's really what this conversation is all about today. The return on investment of getting more sales out of your existing assets. To give you some scale in Tony's Deli, when I got involved in Tony's in 1996, It was a distressed deli. I wasn't in the food business. I'm an entrepreneur, classic serial entrepreneur. This is my 9th venture. I'm always looking for a shiny new object. Mo knows that about me, okay? So what happens to me typically is I start something, it gets going, it starts to fall into line, it starts to get scale, and I got to look for something new because I start going nuts. So the Catering Institute, I put forward today to the community because we realize that education is a big deal. And so it's not about software. It's about actually understanding the business strategy. It's about training our frontline people to understand what we're doing here. And there's a big opportunity as an entire community to bring this conversation of catering so that it resonates with our entire community and we go together to build it, because I'm going to talk about how big I think the opportunity is. So at Tony's Deli, when I got involved, it was distressed. Revenue Canada, we're Canadians, was going to lock the doors. They were going to seize the assets, and the reason that happened was because classic, restaurant story, great turnover, mismanaged. David, who was the owner of Tony's Deli at the time, really had a hard time between understanding the difference between the till and his pocket. So, classic kind of story. But it was a very, very strong brand in the local Vancouver community. When I got involved in Tony's, and it was really this was an urgent situation. This was not like we had luxury of waiting. We were pinched on cash. We rolled the assets into a new company, had to take all the vendors on, and it was like, sorry, we can't pay you. And they're going, you can't pay us, you're not getting any supplies. And we had to rebuild these relationships. In the process of fixing the deli, it became very apparent to me that what we needed to do was to go back to the basics. Thus, I'll talk about the film a little bit today too. But essentially, it was the entrepreneurial spirit that drove us. The desire to fix the deli was really what drove this entire strategy. And so we knew we had a thriving retail business. We tweaked all that. We did all those tweaks. We looked at menu, we optimized, we went to our vendors, we focused on raw materials, we negotiated better contracts. We did all of the elements that all of you do every day in your businesses, which is you go to your suppliers, you go to your people, you try and optimize your labor, you try and focus on your supply chain, that's what you do, okay? And so what happened was, once we got a good handle on that, after about the first 6 months, we started to stabilize. And it was very clear, and this was, to give you a sense, this was a 1,500 square foot deli. It was a very focused genre, if you will. So we were really strong for panini sandwiches. We were doing grilled sandwiches. These were hot sandwiches, okay? We knew the product was designed that once it came off the grill at a certain temperature, you had about 4 or 5 minutes of which to consume that product, to experience it the way we wanted you to, which was the cheese would drip, the mayo, the pesto mayo would be all over the place. We wanted you to have that messy experience. That's what Tony's was all about, okay? We also then had a salad program, which was salad by the weight. We had a baking program, coffee and beverages. And that was really the program. But something started to happen at the store. Now, being in one unit, it was easy because I was on site. I was hammering my deli every single day. So I had myself, I had David, we had a great crew of people. And it was all about, hey, how are we doing today? Send people home early, the usual stuff, just trying to manage ourselves. And the conversation always came up. Hey, this is great. Can you guys deliver to our office? That was always the question. And the customer thought they wanted grilled sandwiches. And so we tried it. We would deliver grilled sandwiches. And guess what would happen? Anybody? Bad experience, okay? It wasn't what we designed. Product didn't travel well. The vessel that we would send it in wasn't right. By the time it got to the boardroom table, by the time they took that bite, the bread was soggy, it was a mess. It just didn't give the experience that we wanted. So we started to get this negative feedback. All of a sudden, the brand was being tarnished. All of a sudden, we had people that were saying, Tony's is not what it was at the store. This is what started to happen. And so I stepped back and I said, look, there's a market for this catering. We need a fresh sandwich program. That's what we need to do. We looked in our coolers, we went into the raw ingredients, we looked at everything, said, we don't need to bring any new raw ingredients in here. We just need to reformulate the product. And so then we started focusing on a new menu. And that menu was a fresh sandwich program with a fresh salad program. We started to use different vessels for delivery. So instead of doing a Greek salad for $6.95, we were now doing a Greek salad for $42.95. And it was in a big bowl. And of course, once we understood this, guess what started to happen? Sales started to increase. We now had this new channel that started to grow out the deli. Now, it was really difficult. And I say that, it was really, we had some days we didn't know how we were going to do it. There was no technology to support what we were doing. We simply were, we couldn't use POS for our transactions. I'm sure some of you who are doing catering in the room, if you're using your point of sale, you'll understand that it does not handle conversational ordering, okay? So now we had a consumer who was standing at the counter, who we were trying to get an order. We'd have to go take a piece of paper, literally, and take an order. How many people are you feeding? What day would you like it for? And we would go through the menu, and it was now a selling process. And then you would place an order for $400, and we would take this order manually, and we would stack the orders high, and it would go to the kitchen, and we'd have to pay overtime because tomorrow we had 13 deliveries out the back door, and our kitchen didn't know what to make because there was no database, no data to be able to tell them what to do. So it was all manual. We're running Excel sheets, we're running order forms over here. Issues of accounts receivable management came up, all these issues. And so I didn't know at the time. I really didn't know what I was doing, the truth is, except I know what I was trying to do is make my customers happy. That's what I was trying to do. So that's what drove me every day. Come on in. Grab a seat. There's some seats over here if you like. Okay. And so this went on for a period of many years, probably about 5 years. And lucky for me, there was a company called MonkeyMedia that was upstairs in the building where Tony's Deli was. So Tony's was on the ground floor, and then upstairs was MonkeyMedia. There was 6 apartments up there. And at that time, MonkeyMedia's focus, and this is how the name came, MonkeyMedia, was focused on web-based animation. Okay, it didn't know anything about restaurant business. It wasn't a software company. It was merely just had a developer who was doing web-based animation. Now, this is in 1998, okay, when everybody was doing static web pages for the internet. There were no applications yet running on the web, okay? And so what happened was, of course, the developer and the sort of creative soul that was at MonkeyMedia at the time would come down to the deli for their afternoon lattes and brownies, and that's what they did. And there was me post-lunch killing myself over this catering operation that was going, hey, these are the 10 that went really well, and these are the 3 that got really screwed up, and this is not acceptable. We really got to fix this. And so in the process of doing that, developer, really kind of quiet guy. His name was Sang-Young Lee, a Korean guy. He was smoking cigarettes, and he had Coke and 2 Cokes, and this guy was a genius, like really a genius. So I would have an idea, and the next thing I know, Sang-Young would come down and say, and it was done. Next thing I knew, I had this function that lived on, believe it or not, it started on a PDF form in those days, okay? And so this was a painstaking process of which was really the mother of invention through need. And we just kept picking away at the solution for Tony's Deli. So after about 5 years of that, we essentially ended up with this SaaS-based solution for driving our catering operation. So now I had retail over there, and I had catering over here. These were very separate businesses. I tell you, all the business processes were completely different. It was complex because I had a customer who was at my counter picking up a latte and a brownie, okay? And at the same conversation, they were going, I want to place a catering order for tomorrow. And my people couldn't handle that conversation. They weren't trained for it. They didn't understand it, okay? So one of the key elements that came out of this was that we actually took one of our individuals, we made them the catering leader. That's how it happened. Now we had leadership, and we're going to talk about the importance of catering leadership a little bit later in the session today, okay? But I come back to the statement of how is it helping change the balance sheet of America? That one deli, when I took over, was $1.2 million in sales. When I sold it in 2004, and I'll tell you why I did, it was doing $2.3 million out of 1,500 square feet. We had bought the sub shop next door because we couldn't manufacture. We were competing for resources like crazy. The store was getting creamed, catering was busy, we had 50 deliveries to make, it was mayhem, okay? And we kept driving for this efficiency. So I learned during the process that catering is manufacturing, okay? It's very different than retail. And so what ended up happening to my business was I now had a business that was doing 2.3 million in sales. I was squeezing it so tight, we were running 51% margins out of there after food, packaging, and labor. You can do the math, okay? This was a deli that was generating well over $1 million worth of cash flow. Now, it took some time, no question. It took a lot of tears, okay? And there were some days when we never said no. I would run into the kitchen, say, Rosa, here's an order for you. And she said, get out of my kitchen. I'd be like, just, you'll get it done. And we'd run away. We became very good at it. Okay, this is what was happening at an operational level, okay? Now, when you have one deli, it's great, okay? Because you can squeeze it tight and you can really, do your thing. You can send people home early. I could close the store, whatever. But when you have 100 stores, or you have 200, or you have 50 or 10, when you get into a multi-unit restaurant environment, this becomes a very complex set of things and decisions. And so I've been very fortunate in my career to spend the last 15 years thinking about this subject, specifically the last 10 especially, of really just focusing on this. and taking the basic concepts of what we were doing at the deli and putting scale into them. And it's amazing to see it happen, okay? And it's great to see some customers in the room, and it's great to see clearly some prospects we're talking to. So what happened was the balance sheet became so strong at Tony's Deli that I started to understand these are basic business principles. There was no magic bullet happening here. It was simply the fact that we were maximizing the utilization of the existing assets. There was very little incremental cost to our operations to drive orders out the back door, okay? And essentially, it just became really strong. And so I learned that it was really just basic. Okay, and I believe today, and I take this responsibility as I put it out to the community, is that I feel that my responsibility is to raise the awareness to our community on this subject matter, because the restaurants of the future will be designed properly so that when we go into our next restaurant generation, okay, we're actually going to design for this catering business, okay? And we're going to talk more about what is this catering business out of restaurants, because it's not the same catering business that you're thinking of for caterers. Okay, and we're going to talk more about that. For those of you that might be in a pinch where your restaurants are not doing well, okay, you're falling on hard times for whatever reasons, I can promise you that catering is a fix. It's an absolute fix. We're working in the KFC system very, very deeply, been doing a lot of work with about 400 stores now, and it's been amazing to watch the turnaround of these stores, okay? Now, when we got in there, it was very complex, a lot of tension, a lot of infighting. Franchisor, franchisee, I mean, you all know it. You're all in there. So those of you that are independents in the room, you don't suffer from these issues. Those of you that are running the multi-unit restaurant environment, you understand the complexity of what's happening in these operations, okay? So we're acting as a broker, if you will. And what's happening is once the business strategy is understood, once we bridge the gap of understanding between the franchisor and franchisee, once we put a strategy in place that's agreed upon, we're seeing a coming together, and what's happening is sales are increasing. We're getting on the other side of the hump, and we have Wayne and Andy and Aaron and Anthony are going to talk to you a little bit about that when I'm done with my monologue here, okay? And so we've seen it enough now to know that if we focus on the business strategy of catering out of restaurants, and we have a very focused conversation, come on in, and we really focus on the program, we know that we can make a massive impact. So in my dream, where I live and I spend my time, I feel that this statement is accurate, because I feel like what we're doing through the reinvention of the next part of ourselves as restaurateurs is, in fact, we're growing a market that's hiding. It's a customer that wants more services from us, and we've done a terrible job as a community in getting our message out to the customers. So catering is kind of resonating in this conversation, okay? So somehow in my own dream, I imagine we're fixing America, imagine. Community is a big part of this conversation. Almost 50% of American workers come out of a restaurant at some point or another. They've learned their skills there, okay? It's a place for first jobs. It's a place for second chances. There's people coming out of jail, and you know where they're going? To the restaurant industry. They want a new beginning. There's very few industries left that are giving that kind of opportunity. So community is huge, huge. And so I invite those of you that are not operators in the room, if you're technology companies, if you're vendors in the room, I invite you to join the conversation. We're a software company, okay? And I invite other software companies to come in and compete with us on this space. I think it's very important for us. Very important for us, never mind everybody else. It's also important for everybody, because we know as a community when we come together and we take an idea and we put our resources to it, that in fact we succeed. And we've seen that. 1946, the US restaurant industry was doing $2 billion in sales, 2 million workers. Here we are in 2013, 660 billion is the forecast this year. 13 million employees. Okay, this is no small matter. So when we can gather as a community and make a decision to do something, it's very powerful. Okay? I want to talk a little bit about the business opportunity, because I think the data is not presented yet. And this is a real challenge. Maybe one day it will be soon presented, okay? But it's big. Now, how can I say that? Well, at Tony's Deli Catering, the way I define it here, is represented close to 50% of our business. We have customers today that are hovering 11, 12, 13, 14%. They've got their sights set on 20%, and they see it, and it's happening, okay? Wayne hopefully will share with us today a little bit, if not for catering, Einstein's is closing stores. They know that. They've been very, very, very clear about that. The entire economic model is shifting. Now, how big is it? Well, at 20% of 660 billion in sales, that's a $133 billion conversation. This is a big business, okay? And this is not private function catering. This is not about, doing someone's wedding on a Saturday. I'm talking Monday to Friday. This is a predictable business that you can do every day out of your restaurants, whether it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner. It's a subset of your menus, okay? We can get into the tactical elements of what has to happen, but this is a simple, scalable model that you can take to your restaurants and drive your sales. Okay, now why is it happening? Well, if we look at, why is this happening? And this is a great conversation because I think the restaurant industry is evolving so far in its conversation. And if we go back again to 1946 at $2 billion in sales to now 60 years later, 66 years later, where we're running 660 billion, what an incredible growth story. Okay, where do we go for more business? Okay, Tom Feltenstein is in the room, and he was there when they punched that first hole in the window at drive-thru. Guess what? Ray said, I want drive-thru. Ray Kroc, I never met Ray, but I read a lot about him. Okay, everyone said, Ray, you're crazy. We can't do it. What are you talking about? Just punch a hole in the wall. So they did. Tom, is it true? Is what happened? Okay, Ed Renzi was there. He'll tell you. They punched a hole in the wall. What happened the first day, Tom?
Well, we ended up the first year at 12% in incremental sales.
What happened the first day?
Jan.
Okay, so market came. Now guess what happened operationally? Uh-oh, lots of trouble, man. They couldn't get it out the door, okay? It was coming off the same hamburger line. They couldn't execute, okay? That's what happened. So eventually what happened was they reconfigured. They had a production line just for drive-thru. Now they had drive-thru, now they had the front counter, and then technology caught up. Same story happening again. Can everyone see it? You see what's happening? So in the case, the space that we're trading in, okay, for the many years that we've been working in this space, it's the same thing that's happening. So here we have customers driving for more convenience. Everybody agree on that? Convenience is huge. Why are the C-stores getting into the restaurant business? Convenience is huge, okay? We already have the real estate, okay? So we know location is big for restaurants. We understand that idea, okay? The consumer's looking for healthy, okay? We know that. It's all shifting. So now we've got healthy, we've got convenience. Guess what the next piece is? Delivery. It's huge. People want delivery. If we can deliver it, make it convenient for the customer, make it healthy, in fact, they will buy. Okay? Now the next piece is, as technology catches up, it gets easier for the restaurant operator to execute. And that's basically what's happening. Okay? And so we're at a very important time, a very important crossroads in our growth as a restaurant community, because a lot of us are looking overseas for expansion. We're going, let's take the model. Somebody wants to buy a market, it looks very sexy, and I can tell you, for some, it's a great idea, and it's important, and we do need to globalize. It's an important part of what we are doing, because our supply chain is doing that. So if Coca-Cola is already international, and we're a customer of Coke, they're going to pull us over there, which is wonderful. It's a great growth opportunity. But there's an incredible pent-up demand right here at home that we need to maximize as a group to really strengthen those balance sheets, to really make sure we deliver an experience to our consumers. Because right now, for off-premise catering, they're going to grocery. And that's where the battle is. Okay? So our customers spend billions and billions of dollars with people like Costco and Safeway. You know them all. Okay? So as we get into this catering space, as opposed to thinking we're fighting with each other for market share, we're actually going to the consumer and say, look, you're spending money elsewhere. Bring it to us because we can give you these services. Okay? And that's a very, very important part of the equation. The market is shifting in a big way. QSR, convenience, delivery, we talked about it. The Fast Cat, Andy Hepp is here today from Ruby Tuesday. He's going to talk to you a little bit about what they've done. When we started, Andy, I think we had 100 items on the menu. You remember that? Trying to do steamed broccoli for catering. We're going, well, steamed broccoli doesn't work. Okay? And so Andy's going to talk to you about his wonderful salad bar invention that Andy came up with it. And he's taken the salad bar. 85% of the sales are coming out of that one product. Cranking, ramping up, easy execution. Stores love it now. Before they hated catering. Okay? Everybody was going, catering is an intrusion. It's an intrusion on operations. No, we're busy with, And guess what? There's, give me catering, give me catering. And he's going to talk to you about that today. We need to understand why that's happening. Okay? So this is all about feeding your customers where they live, work, and play. Okay? The dynamics of this business are completely different than the dynamics we have in our restaurants. The reason our customers are buying are completely different. As a matter of fact, we're tapping into a new customer. And if we do a really good job on cross-pollinating our markets, in fact, we're building new brands, new fans for the brand. So we may tap in at a catering opportunity where there's 50 people at a boardroom table or in a seminar or something that have never tried the brand before, and the first touch they get is a catering experience. And if that is executed properly, you've just won fans to come to your stores. So it's an incredible marketing vehicle to drive more traffic. And I'll tell you, as operators, we are trying to drive traffic. How do we do that? Groupon. How many people do Groupon? How many people are getting rid of Groupon? Not to slam Groupon. Look, the business model is flawed from my perspective. You can't give food away like that. Because what happens is you get discounted. The customer is a discount buyer. That's what happens. You're not actually winning them. They're coming in because there's something for free today. And now they want something for free every time. And as restaurateurs, this becomes a very difficult environment for us. Okay? So I discourage discounting. We just have to do a better job. We have to sell more services and do a better job with our customers. Okay? So here's the challenge. Change is good, you go first. I put it up there. As I was writing it, I put it up because it was Tom's. All right? Change is very difficult. This is a fundamental conversation. All right? This is not easy by any means. As business owners, franchisees, franchisors, whatever your structure is, you need to make a very conscious decision if you want to be in this business. You need to understand the risks. You need to mitigate against them. We need to alter the business structures. Our franchise agreements do not accommodate for catering. There's no language in our franchise agreements. So guess what happens? Franchisors, oversight. We never thought about catering. Guess what happens in the field? Anybody? Franchisees are doing it anyways. Why? Because they're no different than I was, which is sales suck today and I got to get more sales. So what do? I deliver it out the back door. What do? I don't key it into POS because POS can't handle the conversation. And so I fail. If I don't do something, I need the business. And as a franchisor, if I have not given them the roadmap on how to execute that business, guess what happens? Dog's breakfast. In the KFC system, we found one franchisee doing spaghetti and meatballs out the back door. That's the truth. Okay? It wasn't until we gathered as a community, as a group, to decide to have an actual conversation about what is this thing, catering. Okay? What is the standard for the brand? What are the products that travel? What are the vessels they have to go in? Huge investment in packaging. Okay? How do we take an order? What does it look like? Okay? Now, easier said than done. When you get into big systems, there's a lot of politics. You know, power centers are everywhere. And I'll tell you, the change process is severe. Okay? But I can tell you, if you are strategically connected at the very top level, so the strategic decision to be in this market, you will win. And you will win big time. 7 years ago, Ron Shake at Panera Bread says, we'll never do catering. I send you guys the article. It's a fascinating conversation. Today, Panera Bread is doing $350 million in catering. Okay? They're going to be the first brand, they say, to do $1 billion. All of a sudden, woke up. Why? Well, because it's good for the balance sheet. It comes down to the fundamental issue. It's just simply good business. Make sense? Okay? So the utilization of existing infrastructure is really the conversation to be had here, because we don't want to go build new facilities. We want to use the ones we have. The beautiful thing about catering, because of the element of distribution, which is getting it out the back door, there's a lag time between getting the delivery out and when your store gets slammed for lunch. That's a very important time. Very important time. Because it complements the swells. We use the existing assets, we utilize the existing labor better, okay? And we get more sales out the door before lunch gets slammed. So now that it's out the door, what happens is, when lunch finally comes, we're now ready to handle our lunch rush. And you can see how the magic starts to work. So it's all about utilizing existing infrastructure, okay? Now to do this, we need dedicated resources. We need a business strategy, We need a conscious decision to invest in this channel, and then we have to dedicate resources to it to succeed. It's no different than anything else we've ever done in our restaurants, okay? We have all kinds of wonderful people doing marketing, doing HR, doing training, doing IT, doing everything that happens in our companies every single day. Well, all of those elements that happen inside your company, you have to take them and you have to redo them for catering. Okay? There's a whole conversation and a facilitation that has to happen in that process. Okay? Because we know without people, time, and money, we can't succeed. This is a long-term play. There's nothing short-term about it except to say that once you have the strategy, once you understand the program you designed for it, okay, once you mitigate for it, that in fact, we'll talk about the tactical elements in a little bit, but in fact, what will start to happen is your sales will increase rapidly. These are ideas that you can take back on Monday and start doing. The other piece that's very important and is a big part of the challenge is the language, okay? There's a lot of confusion between takeout and catering. There's a lot of confusion between online ordering and POS and catering. It's a very confusing landscape. This is not about technology. Forget the technology. Take it out of the conversation. This is about the fundamental strategic decision and infrastructure and design of your organization to leverage the assets that you have in a thoughtful way, in a way that you can win, okay? So the power of media. We've been working in another, I gotta be careful how I say it, but we've been working in another brand, very large brand. They've identified catering as a $3 billion business opportunity for them, okay? $3 billion. So it's happening, it's coming. You will soon see the catering message on mainstream media. You're gonna see it on television, you're gonna see it on billboards, you're going to see it, okay? I'd be a happy day when that happens for me, I tell you, because it's been coming for a long time. It's been coming for a long time. And so the language is starting to shift. Now, you that have made this investment to come into this room today, it's important that you don't fall mainstream because everybody's starting to say we cater. Everybody see that everywhere? All of a sudden, does it seem like catering's everywhere all of a sudden? Well, to me, it's not all of a sudden. Okay? We are going to have to get very, very smart in how we segment ourselves in these markets. So we cater is no longer good enough because everybody caters. So we cater what? We're getting into market segmentation. This is going to become a very sophisticated problem for us as we grow. Okay? So we cater what is going to be important. So how are we going to differentiate our catering program? For example, we have another client we work with that has 3 channels in the catering, just in the catering channel. We have this drop-off thing where we basically take orders, we drop it off, and we say thank you very much, and we leave. $300, catch you later. Okay, great packaging, corrugated cardboard, beautifully branded, make sure the products fit well. Then there's another channel called Set Up and Retrieve, which is same products, same packaging. We come there, but guess what we do? The delivery driver comes in with a chef coat, we lay a tablecloth on top, we put some flowers in the middle, we now sit there and we wait till they're finished eating, and when they're done, we clean up. It's called Set Up and Retrieve. Guess what? The price point is different. Same product exactly. The only differentiation between the service channels is that one layer of service. Because the customer wants convenience, there's a premium that's there available for us as operators. We're going to talk about pricing in just a moment. The third channel is this event business. What is an event? It can be anything that you can dream of. It's language, okay? We talked yesterday about that, right? We had a long conversation about it, okay? So in the case of this other customer, what is an event to them? Well, it's a Mexican concept. We managed to convince them to say, you want to do events? Great, do me a favor, one program. One program? What are you talking about? We do all kinds of things. Like what? I said, like what? Mashed potatoes and champagne glasses. I said, really? Is that on your core menu? How does that come out when you execute mashed potatoes and, well, sometimes it's good, sometimes. I said, well, we can't scale that. How do we scale that across 180 stores? Forget about it. So what is the program? Well, we settled on fajita bars. That was it. One product. Okay? So now we upscaled it. Chafing dishes. We've got people in chef coats. We go on site. We provide service. Now we're at an $18.95 price point. Same raw materials. No difference in anything we're doing. It's just difference in packaging, language, and conversation. Make sense? Okay, it's very sophisticated. Okay? So what's the solution? Now that I've managed to freak you all out on catering, I have this as a real conversation with you because the last thing I want to do is mislead you into something that you think is easy, Okay, it's not. But I can tell you on the other side of it, and you're going to hear from some people today, we've been through this process for the last 3, 4, 5 years, and they are winning big time. Okay? Senior management is happy. It's part of the core strategy. They're making investment profits are better than ever in this channel. Okay? So the solution really is to invest in a standard for your brand. You have to commit to your catering brand promise. How many of you right now are happy with your catering program, the way it's executed? Hands? You're happy? Awesome. Your customers are going to tell you. How many of you right now doing catering, your customers are calling and saying, you blew it today? How many are getting calls like that? Okay? A few hands in the room. We have to really ask ourselves why this is happening. When we started working with Erin at Boloco, she'll tell you the story today. They thought it had to be exactly emulated to the store. Now, they're famous in the Boston market. I mean, famous. This is a radical fan followings for Boloco. Congratulations, Patrick. Okay, Patrick's in the room. But of course, it's a build your own burrito program. So when you walk into the store, you get to say, oh, I'll have a little bit of that, a little bit of that. And it's on the line and they make it for you. They wrap it up and it's your burrito. So when they went into catering, they tried to do the same thing. It was difficult, okay? It was difficult not just for the customer, but it was difficult for the execution was so difficult. So we sat down with Erin and said, Erin, look, we got to get away from this build your own burrito program. We got to go with a fixed program. We got to go with your flavors that you know that work, which you all have your flavor profile in your restaurants. You know what your signature items are. And we need to tell the customer what they want. Not them tell us what they want. We need to tell them what they want. And of course, we did that. And it became easier. All of a sudden, we had scalability, predictability, less errors. Customers were happy. As a result, they were coming back for more. Okay? Now they feel good about the brand promise. Okay? We have to set the standard. We have to educate to that standard. This is really what's driving the Catering Institute. Maybe there'll be other people that come into the game and say, look, we're a Catering Institute too. I invite them. It's wonderful. It pushes the limits. Competition is important. It creates innovation. Okay? We have to sit there and bust our brains every single day on how to succeed in our own business. Okay? Team of 38 people. It's all we think about all day long. How can we make it better? How can we make it better? Customers like screaming at us too. We're not perfect, okay? And we're having to react to the market. We're having to provide them service. As a software company, in our culture at MonkeyMedia Software, we don't look at ourselves as a software company. We're really in the hospitality industry. That's what we are. Because we're a SaaS-based service model, we have access to the internet. Everything we do is on the internet today. And that facilitates for us a wonderful service opportunity. Because it's on the internet, it also causes us a lot of issues because we can change it. So in the old days of software, you wanted to change, it was like somebody made some code, somebody tested it out, they put a patch out, and it was like months out, and you were lucky if the patch worked in your environment because your server wasn't upgraded, et cetera, et cetera. These issues don't live in our world. Using the internet to drive business applications is a whole new world. So rather than it becoming software, it's a service. And the internet has brought that to our business, okay? So educating to the standard is critical. Pick a standard, create your own, use ours, whatever it takes, okay? Once we educate to the standard, we have to implement to that standard. Implementation is the most difficult thing we all have in any business, especially as restaurateurs. There's a gazillion things going on. We have wonderful people like Jim Vin sitting in the room. Jim, for those who don't know, is with LaDuff America. Very complex set of business challenges, multi-brands, thousands of stores, thousands of employees, mergers, acquisitions, and just a ton of stuff going on, okay? And so in order to succeed in this catering channel, for those who don't know Jim before, Jim was Corner Bakery, and of course Corner Bakery is one of the brands that really understands the strategy of catering. They've been doing it for a long time, okay? And so it's very important from the implementation perspective, which is probably the most difficult part of all of it, okay? Easy to say, hard to do, right? We all have that problem. And then commit to the brand promise. I'd like to open it up to a little Q&A before I introduce our next, our panel. I'd just like to open it up to a little question and answer. A couple of things I just want to say. There's 5 pillars, you might want to write this down, that we've come up with that we believe is the standardization of this catering channel in a restaurant environment. The first one is leadership. You need to commit to a business leader. It's a different conversation. They need to be in your organization fighting for resources at the boardroom level. That's what needs to happen because somebody has to hang on that position. Okay, very important. So leadership. Centralized services is key to the conversation. We have to take the service element from the conversation, the order entry, the administrative aspects of catering out of the stores. Very important, okay? Because the stores are complicated. There's a complex level of transactions that are happening, okay? Centralizing those services are very important in terms of the scalability of the program. Sales and marketing are huge in this. You need to enroll your marketing departments. They really have to dive down and understand the messaging that has to happen to the consumer. The customers are very sophisticated. They are confused, and if we don't give them the right message, they don't understand. Okay? So what we're dealing with is a customer who wants more services from us. We have to do a great job at telling them what our services are. The other one is sales. Active selling is what has to happen to grow this business. You need to identify a catering salesperson, a manager in your organization. If you're a bigger organization, you want a lot of them. Those are people that are pounding the pavement. Wayne hopefully will share with you, I don't know how much he can share, but he'll share with you a wonderful order that his team wrote. Biggest order ever for Einstein's. I don't think they ever could fathom that they would write this kind of contract. Massive, massive. And he'll talk to you about how that happens. It's his sales teams that are driving these relationships. They're sampling, they're calling these customers, they're actively selling. Okay, these are commission-based people. Operations is critical here. Absolutely, you have to weave it in. So there's a huge conversation that happens on operations. And then you need to build a world-class delivery program. We've learned that without delivery, we might as well not be in the catering business. Okay? Delivery has to happen. Okay? So those are the 5 leadership elements. You'll notice that we have Hillary over here, Tracy's in the room over there. These are members of our Catering Institute team. Tracy and Hillary spend all of their time with me. We also have Lisa, who's on maternity leave right now, working in the field, hands-on with people like Lorenzo. This is what we do. We go into the field, we work with our customers, we train them. We're very excited because on June the 6th, we decided to have a Chicago workshop, which is our first one. It's a catering sales workshop. It's strictly sales focused. It's $249 to attend. We didn't really know what was going to happen, and we're overwhelmed. As a matter of fact, for those of you, if you go to our booth, you'll find a banana. You get a banana, first of all. And there's a tag on the banana, which you can scan the QR code, and I think we have 10 free seats for that Chicago workshop if anybody's interested, or if you want to send some team members. And so what we're seeing is incredible traction for the pent-up demand for learning, the yearning for collaboration, for conversation. Okay? Okay, and I think that's basically from this presentation at the moment. That's it. Okay?